and that is A049, the same resolution number that we talked about in this very room when we did the pre-convention meeting here in April. A049, with some amendments, came through to both floors and passed as amended. And as you all know, this is the piece that authorizes liturgical resources for same-sex blessings, okay? And so Bishop Waldo and deputies, anything, we're certainly going to be talking about this, I know, in questions and answers, but any comments as we begin this discussion?
I should probably start because I was on the Prayer Book Liturgy and Church Music Legislative Committee that discussed the original resolution that came through and made a number of amendments. I think I want to start by characterizing those discussions. There were a minority of folks, a very small minority of folks who were concerned about this legislation present in the room. That committee has about 50 members. So it was a really long U-shaped table, and there were always folks present for hearings. We had one hearing that lasted, 2 hours, I think. And that's when people come and they say things at the mic, and we make notes of that. The discussions at the Legislative Committee can only be characterized as having been remarkably graceful. The deputy from South Carolina, David Thurlow, was very active in those discussions and articulating his objections. He is the one who actually asked that the canonical protection, there's a canonical protection present in the right that says that, let's see, essentially that no one who objects for reasons of conscience to this, which line? 59, that this convention honor the theological diversity of this church in regard to matters of human sexuality, and that no bishop, priest, deacon, or layperson should be coerced or penalized in any manner, nor suffer any canonical disabilities as a result of his or her conscientious objection to or support for the 77th General Convention's action with regard to the blessing of same-sex relationships. When that was put in, it was he offered that, and it was embraced without a moment's hesitation by the entire committee. As you know, many of my concerns around this have had to do with needing to have a much deeper engagement with the received tradition theologically, and I offered the resolution that called for further development and in relation to particular areas of systematic theology. That also was received not only gladly, but you had the sense that those, especially those members of the Standing Committee on Liturgy and Music that produced the report and the original resolution, that they actually agreed that work needed to be done. So they were also happy to do that and to include the line that asks for theological diversity on the group that will be working on that over the coming triennium. So I just want to make a little side comment here because the Wall Street Journal's report suggested that the Diocese of South Carolina's deputation essentially stormed out. David Thurlow, the vote was on, I think, on the afternoon, I forget which day. Bishops voted on Monday afternoon, the deputies voted on Tuesday afternoon. Okay, bishops voted Monday, deputies on Tuesday. Wednesday morning, we had a committee meeting, and David was there, and the first thing he said was he asked for a personal point of privilege and said that he didn't want to come in and have everybody who had become important to him in the course of those discussions to see an empty chair. And the way he described his leaving was that he just said, I just don't have the appetite right now to do this. He was filled with grief, but also it was gracious and loving, and there was a deep sense of his love for that group. And I think that was the spirit with which the entire South Carolina deputation left, and certainly was Mark Lawrence stood up in the House of Bishops and expressed his love for everyone in the room. And so I just want you to know that the image that was portrayed in the Wall Street Journal was utterly and completely misleading, what actually happened. And Mark and I have a fishing date planned for April 27th, tentative, because I know that he's in a lot of discernment. I don't know what the Diocese of South Carolina will do, but that relationship is important to me, as are my relationships with the gay and lesbian community in this diocese, which I know is upset with me for my no vote on this. I did stand up. If you go to our diocesan website, there are two things that I wrote, and at the bottom of the list is what I actually said in testimony on the floor of the House about it. I want to say, though, in reference to Bishop Doyle's paper, Unity and Mission, which I really only had a chance to read in full about a week or 10 days before convention, is that his group has really done a lot of the theological work. I think there's still a few more things, but they've really done quite a lot of it. And his description of what they will do, which is very similar to what I have been suggesting that we do. And I'm very interested to hear more. They're just farther along in it. But that document will be a real critical foundational piece for the work that our task force does. At least it'll be a starting place. There'll be other things. It'll be a starting place, not just in terms of theological work, but also in terms of how we will find a way forward in this diocese that makes space for those congregations that are ready to do blessings, and those congregations that are not close to being ready. And so that I really encourage you to read what he says, because it really is similar to what I was proposing, and I do think that we'll be asking a lot more questions. I'm actually trying to see if I can get Bishop Doyle to come and talk about his experience in that diocese. And if you saw, I think I said in my letter that they have 27,000 people in church on a Sunday, which is more than we have all communicants and baptized members combined. So I think the foreword to his paper is written by Secretary of State, former James Baker. So I know you'll have questions, but that I think gives you the basic outline, and we'll get to the questions in a little bit.
Deputies, I think it would be important for us to hear anything from your perspective on the vote in the House, or anything that you want to bring to this conversation as well. Anyone have something there?
I'm Barbara Scott, and I was the first alternate deputy at General Convention. I did the same homework and study that our deputies did in case I got booted up to deputy, which happened to me at 7 o'clock on Tuesday morning. And I just want to let each of you know that having been to general conventions for other organizations, I was absolutely smitten with the dignity and the grace by which objections were heard, the testimonies and the legislative committees on this subject were civil, they were moving on both sides of the issue, but every voice that wanted to speak was heard. And to me, that spoke volumes about our brotherhood and our sisterhood and our unity in the Episcopal Church. And I hope that continues.
Anyone else before we move on? Okay. Just some information here one more time. If you're interested in the amendments that Bishop Waldo pointed out, and you want to make a note by your listing for A049, the amendment that David Thurlow from the Diocese of South Carolina proposed and had passed is lines 59 through 64, if that's important to you.